Hello, everybody. We'll take just a second to let people float in, and we'll get started right at 4:30. I'm going to put some interesting and vital information in the chat, so please make sure you're checking that out. All right, everybody, let's get started today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you were here last time, you know that I ended the presentation letting you all know I was on the way to the hospital because my granddaughter was born. So, I now am a grandma and she's beautiful and perfect and all the fun things. So, thanks for all the well wishes that I got by email. Just to remind you, Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center is not a legal service agency. We do not provide legal advice or representation. We are partially funded from the U.S. Department of Education, but please do not consider us federally endorsed. My name is Abby Mars, and I am a transition facilitator and charting the life course ambassador here at Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center. I am a mom of four young adults, three of which had an IEP and transition plan while they were in school, and one of had a 504 plan. So I'm very familiar with the advocacy part as a parent. I was also a student with a disability when I attended school, so I'm very familiar with advocacy as an individual as well. I've been with Family Matters going on 6.5 years now. I hold a bachelor's degree in human services with a career focuses on disability supports and transition. So I'm super excited to be here with you today. This series has been really fun. We partner with the Illinois Elevating Special Educators in order to provide you with a professional development credit, which if you saw in the notes that I put in the chat, you will receive a link to that at the end, and it will take up to 5 business days for that to post to your Ellis account. So there's some instructions in the chat about your Ellis account and making sure you get that connected correctly, so that can be updated. Just so I have friends texting me while I'm presenting that are watching my presentation. Sorry, and I have ADHD, so I get sidetracked. So anyway, I'm going to put the phone away. So please remember that it can take up to 5 business days to get that credit back in. I got a lot of messages last time. No worries. I'll be happy to answer your questions. It's just we partner. So, all right. Today we're going to focus on opening doors and really focus hard on our post-secondary education pathways. It's a very important part of transition planning to talk about how we learn when we leave high school. Currently, right now, if you're working with students, by the way, if you wouldn't mind putting your name in the chat and letting me know how you work with students, whether you're their parent, a professional, an educator, I'd love to know. I'd love to read back through that and just see who our audience is. So if you could take a minute, put in the chat your name and how you're working with students, I would very much appreciate that. I got sidetracked. Sorry. Transition teacher. Okay. Hi, Peggy. Nice to see you. All right. Okay. Substitute teacher. I love substitute teachers. I subbed all my way through bachelor's. So yeah, I kind of miss subbing sometimes, guys. Okay. So, as we all know, we have these transition plans to make for our individuals, for our students that we're serving, and they are very time consuming. There's a lot that goes into transition planning. I feel like there's not enough time to give to each student like we need to. So we developed this series as a way to help you connect with more resources and really student center your transition plans. So I hope the series has been helpful, and today we'll focus on the post-secondary element. So we're going to identify multiple types of post-secondary learning pathways. We're going to explain more about graduation status and really talk about some key resources that can help you as an educator and as a parent really find a really good path for your students and help them understand what it is they want to do in next steps. So we're going to also develop practical action steps for students, families, and schools along with community partners to take during the transition years. So post-secondary planning really matters. So it's about more than just, school is temporary. It will end someday. It feels like when you're in school as a student that it will never end. I'm sure as you as educators, it feels like some years will never end, but school does end. But that doesn't mean that learning ends. We learn as human beings every single second of the day. We're learning, whether that be in an informal setting or a formal setting behind a desk, whether it be on the job or in our community or spending time with our partners or our friends. We're constantly learning. So I think the best step when we're approaching a student to talk about how you want to learn after high school is we frame it that way. We don't put it in a small little box and say, where are you going to go to school when you graduate from here? Because I know 18-year-old Abby, although she had very clear career path plans of where I wanted to go to school, I also wanted to be done with school. It was really hard for me to focus on passing my SATs and getting good grades and making sure I was going to my band competitions on time to get my scholarships, let alone thinking about where I was going to go to school for next steps. So I think the thought of college or trade school is very abstract to a student at this point. They're not focusing. Their head is not there. Mom and dad are definitely there. Okay, their teachers are definitely there, and that brings us back to, remember I explained last time at that IEP table that there's three different paths of everybody at a transition. Okay. There is the parent that's thinking about next steps and services, how to support my student. There's the educator that's thinking about making progress, serving their student, meeting state requirements, meeting IDEA requirements. And then there's the student who just doesn't want to be there, wants to be like everybody else. Okay. And focus on what makes them happy. So we've got to figure out a way to tie this all back in. So I think it's very important that we kind of shift that mindset of where you're going to go to school when you leave here to how are you going to learn? How can we support you to learn? And then we're really going to have to explain to our students how we learn in different settings, to help them understand, is college in my future? You know, do I want to do on the job training? Is community learning more for me? It'll help them make those decisions if we reframe it to where they understand that every single person leaves when they leave learns when they leave high school, whether it's formal or informal. So I think that's kind of a very good clarity step, the first step to take with our students. So moving forward, I personally, when I help students plan for their future, when I help professionals make transition plannings, I always start with the charting the life course mindset. Now, remember, you've heard me talk about CTLC all day long for lots and lots of time. Our charting the life course mindset thinks about the student first and their vision for a whole good life. How can they find joy and how can they give joy back to others? We do not start transition planning with what services are available to them. We do not start transition planning with what limits that they are. We put them as a person first. Okay. We make sure that we know that our students, what they want is what we're going to go towards. Okay. And I know sometimes we have to get creative, but that's why these plans are individualized. So I think it's very important that we start with the student in the middle. Okay. So what does the student want to learn about? Okay, so maybe your student is just really loves tractors. Okay, like that's their focus. How can they learn outside of high school about tractors more? All right, maybe your student really loves math. How can they learn outside of high school about math more? It doesn't matter if they're good at math. It doesn't matter if they're good at tractors. This is what they want to learn about. So I think it's very important to focus on what they want first. Then we move on to what their strength is. So maybe driving is not a strength for them. So driving a tractor would be very difficult, but their enthusiasm about tractors and their love of tractors, what could we pair that with next? Could they work at a tractor museum and tell all these people that come up all the things about tractors that they want to see? Could they work with a landscaping department and help to mow yards? Like, how do they want to learn about after they leave high school? And then we talk about what supports they would need to get them there. So we get inventive, okay? And in Illinois, thank goodness we have such a long span to work on these transition plans compared to other states. We want to think about what experiences move them more towards their good life goal. So for my student that really likes tractors and wants some type of a career working with a tractor, a good life goal for him might not be working at McDonald's. Okay. A short term goal of making money to do this, and this is needed, but their whole life good vision for a good life is not staying at McDonald's. So I think it's very important to make that clarity with a student really early on. All right, today we always focus on a student, and it's going to be Maya today. I do have to let you know Maya is a fictional student. I will not fib to you and not say that some of the students I work with all over the state, a little bit of Maya might be there, okay? But Maya's 17 years old. She does have an IEP, so she's actively working on her transition plan. She loves cooking, but she also really loves animals. She learns best through demonstration and hands-on activities. And she's motivated when work feels meaningful. So the current questions are: the family is unsure about a diploma versus a certificate, but Maya says she wants to go to college or something like college. So the team needs to explore more. So with Maya, we're going to build three possible pathways for her learning after she leaves high school. But remember, Maya's fictional, maybe based a little bit on a number of students, but Maya's a fictional person. So we start with our students' visions first, okay? So Maya has stated, I want to learn when I leave high school. I want to go to college or something like college. Okay, so Maya's view of college might be something she's seen on her favorite TV show, or maybe her sister goes to college. Maybe she went to college basketball game. Okay, that's her view on college. So it's important to say, why, Maya, do you want to go to college? What about college interests you? Okay, so we need to find out all the things. Maybe the thing about college that interests Maya is that there's a club she can join, or maybe that she wants to live in a dorm away from home. So it's very important that we identify what about going to college interests Maya. Then we talk about how you feel successful, Maya. What can we do to help you feel successful? What have you shown that has showed you to help you to be successful? So we're going to identify where the student can participate and grow. So we know with Maya, she does great with mom helping her to remind to do things, and she does great with her English teacher reminding her to turn an assignment in or helping organize paperwork. And we connect her with accommodations that can line that up in some type of college setting. And then we show her different types of college settings as well. So we don't just say, okay, I'm going to go to U of I. Like that's the whole point of the conversation. No, we show her different types of college settings, maybe a 4-year, a 2-year, maybe a certificate program. Maybe an inclusive program. We show her different types of college settings so we can find out exactly what it is about college that Maya wants to do, besides learn, obviously, and what her strengths are and what supports work best for her and how we can use those supports when she goes to college. So for Maya, her first step was to visit a culinary lab, talk with a culinary student, and try a hands-on lesson. So this is something I did I've always thought like this would be a great idea. And so during a meeting the other day, I just simply asked a college professor, I said, so could one of my students come in and watch your class? And they said, well, yeah, that sounds great. So now my student can go in and see exactly what that class in college is going to look like and what's going to be expected of them. So then they kind of know, is this for me or not? I think the in the root of me, I keep saying this over and over again, as somebody with a disability, our whole society is based a lot on trial and error and learning from those errors. And for people with disabilities, sometimes consequences don't quite line up with the actions. So for me, although I knew I was going to fail if I didn't turn in my assignments, I still struggled to turn in my assignments. It still wasn't at the top priority of what I was doing because I struggled so much with getting it done. I had to have those accommodations in place to be successful. And it took me a really long time as an adult to figure out you've got to do this or you're going to fail. So I think sometimes expectations for our students to be like everybody else, to learn from the consequences like everybody else is not okay. Their mind learns differently. That's why they have supports in place. And that's why we teach them differently and individualize their plans to help them learn those consequences more effectively. So sometimes getting in there and really seeing helps our students make conclusions about what they want for their future. I also want to talk a little bit about that pathway is not a ladder. So I would really like you guys all right now to be honest and put in the chat. When you were 17 years old, did you know what type of post-secondary education you wanted to have? Can you put that in the chat for me? Like, did you for sure know exactly what you wanted to do? Yes. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. No, no, no. Wasn't sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So these are all really honest answers. And these are a lot of the things that your students are going to be, that you're going to be asking of your students. So when I graduated, it was a little almost 25 years ago, there was a huge emphasis on 4-year universities. You could not do anything in life or be successful unless you went to college for 4 years. My mom was in grad school when I graduated high school. My dad had just earned his GED the day I earned my high school diploma. So education, my dad thought in order to do anything in life, you have to get an education. It's the one thing that no one can take away from you. It's so, so important. You have to go to a 4-year university. So there's a lot of pressure on me and on kids my age at the time that you could not be successful if you didn't go to a 4-year college. So when I started my 4-year college, I was not successful. I'll be completely honest. I failed out of my first semester of college, and then I didn't go back for almost, well, my mentor's on here right now. I think it was almost 10 years, right, Mrs. Carswell? So I didn't go back to college for almost 10 years for lots of different reasons. But I think that it's not, we've got to make sure that we tell students there's no better plan. Okay. It's your plan. Lots of people are successful with different types of pathways to learning. All right. So college is a great pathway to learning. It's wonderful, but it's not the only wonderful thing. My dad, did not go to college. He, like I said, got his GED the day that I got my high school diploma, and he provided for his family very well throughout his entire life. He's still alive. He still provides for his family. He works very hard, but he does something that he loves, and he's really, really good at it. Okay. So, but he didn't go to college. My brother went to trade school and makes more money than I could ever dream of making with a 4-year almost master's degree. Okay. So I don't think our success should be measured on what type of thing that you're doing. And I think sometimes we're telling our kiddos, if you don't go to a 4-year college, if you don't go to some type of college, you're not going to make anything in life. Well, I mean, our stats show that sometimes people that go to college make more money, but they definitely, reality is people that go to trade school make way more money than people with a 4-year degree. A plumber, a welder. For my dad's case, he owns his own business. He's done that for almost 20 years now. You can be successful without that 4-year college degree. So I don't want you to look at it like college is the best. And if you only go and get your GED, that's not going to matter. Like, you've got to keep reaching. Okay. I also think that it's important for our students to know they're capable of doing whatever type of plan they want to do, but none is better than the other. All right. Of course, my kids, I push some type of post-secondary education on them, but it definitely wasn't you're going to fail in life if you don't do this. I just think it's very important that we not phrase it as you have to have a doctorate to matter in life, because I'm a person with a 4-year degree that I am very, very proud of. I worked very hard to get that, but I also have a lot of debt that's related to that. And I do have a really, really good job, and I love my job, and I would not have this job without that degree. But I think that, you can be happy doing anything in life as long as it's something that you are proud of and that you want to do. And so necessarily a college degree doesn't make or break you as a person. So please make sure that when we're approaching our students with different types of pathways to learning, we are not just focusing on the best as a 4-year degree or a 6-year degree. Like, that's not the best. I know a lot of really, really smart people that don't have one day of college. I also know a lot of really, really smart people that have their doctorate. So I don't really think the smart for our kids is really connected a lot to where they learn and where they go to school, but there's lots of ways to learn. So as you can see here, here's some examples of pathways to learning. We have a college, a trade school, a certificate program, like at a local community college or learning center, your GED or adult education equivalent, apprenticeships, on-the-job training, and different types of supportive employment. So these are some different pathways to learning. So we're going to focus just a little bit right here on diploma versus certificate of completion. So it's very important that you are very straightforward and clear with your parents on their very first transition planning meeting, and you as a parent are very clear and focused with your educational team. You have to identify very early on which pathway your student is on here. Is it going to be a certificate of completion or a high school diploma? Okay, and I'm not going to tell you that one is better than the other. Again, this is individualized. Um, all of my students all that live in my home, one of my sons has very, very high support needs, but we were still able to achieve a high school diploma for him. Okay, but other students that are like him may have only got a certificate of completion. Neither one is better than the other. I just want you to know that if you are a junior in high school and plan to change your path, that might be hard. Like we have to be very upfront really quickly, to know exactly what we're doing. So a regular high school diploma or a standard diploma is awarded when a student is finished with school. So once a student with an IEP is handed that diploma, their services in the state of Illinois end. Okay, so they are no longer entitled to free and appropriate public education. They then have to become eligible for services, and that's a whole nother presentation I've done. So it's very important that you know that's what a diploma is. A certificate of completion is not the same thing as a regular high school diploma under IDEA. It does not automatically mean that learning ends either, okay? It may allow you to be continued to have services through your school for transition related learning. So post-secondary options may differ and need careful planning if you're only getting a certificate of completion. So that's where they're a little different there. So a diploma versus completion, part two. A regular diploma will there's very, very slim chances that your IDEA services will continue. So a diploma means that your IDEA services end. Um, most types of college programs, so a typical 4-year college, is going to require you to have a diploma to enter that stage of learning. All right. So a GED or high school diploma sometimes has a lot to do with admission requirements to schools. So not all of them, but I would say the majority of a 4-year, 2-year degree, you're going to be required to show that you have a high school diploma or GED. Financial aid and funding is also very reflected of a GED or high school diploma. This also is the same about DRS. So there's 3 different types of services that DRS gives you, and if you're wanting help with education from DRS, you have to have that diploma. You have to show that you're done with school to get it. So it's very important very early on that you really talk about, okay, someday I would like Johnny to go to some type of college program. So if that is the goal for Johnny, that we need to start with the diploma versus the certificate, just to be on the safe side that Johnny is going to be able to go to some type of a college. Now, not all colleges are like that. There's some inclusive college programs we'll talk about here soon that you don't have to have a diploma for, but it's important early on to identify post-secondary what our dreams are for Johnny or what our dreams are for Maya. Because if a certificate of completion is all she's going to earn, not all, that's what she's going to earn, she's just earning the certificate, then that means a different type of college experience would be available to Maya. So we'd have to really focus and learn about that. Now, again, every student is different. So I do know that like my local community college offers some certificate programs where they don't ask to see a copy of your GED or high school diploma. And then I would have that certificate for my job that I wanted to do. I also know that there's lots of inclusive colleges across the state that don't require a diploma, but some do. And almost all 4-year universities, you're going to have to show your transcript and your diploma to go to. So it's very important that you know which path your student wants to take after high school, or at least a general idea. So that way you are prepared for the diploma versus the certificate. If you have questions about this specifically, you can contact your transition coordinator at your district, your superintendent, to really talk about what your district offers and what your student is eligible to learn. If you feel like your student should earn one over the other, and you want to add more questions about that answered, feel free to reach out to me. This is a very delicate topic. It's something that a lot of professionals across the state are really focusing on learning more about right now, because different districts do it differently. Okay, so I will be out front with you on that. So if you have direct questions, would like more support in helping to identify which path your student is on or what they're eligible for, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you navigate that. So a certificate does not mean that the student is not going to have a future. Okay. So just because they don't have a diploma or GED doesn't mean they're not going to have a future either. It just, again, means their pathway to learning is going to look different. So a lot of times a student will receive, they'll participate in their college, in their high school graduation with their class, but maybe they're eligible for more services from the district until they're 22. So that's a time when a student may have a certificate instead of that diploma. They may get the diploma after the transition services are done. It can then help set them up for some more inclusive post-secondary education, workforce training, supportive employment. So I don't want you to think that a certificate of completion is just a piece of paper that somebody handed me. Okay, you earned that certificate of completion, and it will help you to go to next steps. It's just a diploma may help you open a door into a more formal learning setting. So I want to clarify that. Again, neither option is bad. It's individualized per your student. So here is kind of a bigger menu of what our different options might be for pathways to learning. So your typical 2 or 4 year college where you're degree seeking. Okay, so you're going to get a degree in human services or education or history or art. You're going for a specific degree. So a lot of times when we're talking with our students about post-secondary education, they completely wind back into what job you're going to want to have. Okay, so if I want to be an archaeologist, then we're going to have to present to our students, well, an archaeologist requires that you have, oh my goodness, I think it's an 8 year degree. I don't even know anymore, whatever Harrison Ford has, right? You have to have a big degree to do that. So this is what this type of college is going to look like for you. If and so forth. So an inclusive post-secondary education program, a lot of colleges across the state are offering some type of inclusive program. And that's for a special group of students that qualify or are eligible. There's our eligible word again for this type of inclusive education. So there's specially designed programs within a college, a 2 or 4 year university, that can help a student be successful while they're there. So that's a more tailored approach. So they might have a group of dorms where these students live at so that they have more support, maybe a DSP on staff. They may have paraprofessionals that go to and from class with them. They might have, they work on their academics during the day and their social skills. So it's an inclusive type setting. Having said that, every 2 or 4 year college that takes any type of financial money, so FAFSA and all the fun stuff, has to have a disability service department. So if you are a student with an IEP and you need accommodations to be successful, maybe not the full inclusive program, you can go to your disability service department and say, hi, my name's Abby, I have ADHD and I need help with this. And they help to communicate that with your professors. And that's where we at Family Matters really thrive on that one-pager document I'm always selling to everybody because it helps to give a student a voice when they're communicating with disability services. So trade schools and technical schools, I was so jealous of my baby brother. Okay, so he went away to tech school in Cleveland, all right? He was there for 18 months, left with a full-time job with 401k benefits, all the things, and not a cent of student loan debt. So I was so jealous of him. But the trade school option for him, he went and focused exactly on what he wanted to do. So he's a mechanic. So it runs in the family, right? So he's a mechanic and he does auto body restoration, and that's what he wanted to do. So he found a trade school that could support that. He went and did that, came back, had a full-time job with 401k and all the things, and he's still with that company today. So trade schools are amazing. They are so great because for our students that really want to focus on what they want to learn and they work good with their hands and they work good on all these little things, trade school is a good option for them. So you're taking out the general education credits that a student would need to graduate with a 2 or 4 year degree. And we're focusing on the welding, we're focusing on the plumbing, we're focusing on a little bit of finance. So that's what's there in those trade schools. So trade schools are really catching on and being popular right now because it's not as long as a 2 year degree, but yet you can get usually jobs are coming to the trade schools and recruiting the students. So yes, a community college certificate. So I mentioned this a little bit ago. My daughter is currently working on a community college certificate through her local community college, but this is kind of a little bit like trade school. Okay, so she's focusing on, for her, it's culinary. She's focusing on a catering certificate, and it's specifically for that. For her, it's a do at your own pace because it's an online asynchronous classroom site type setting. So that exists for her. So she bought it. Actually, DRS helped her to purchase it so she can learn that way. So community college certificates are great programs. Other types of places other than community colleges have certificate programs. So make sure that you're kind of looking into that if you feel like that's more of a tailored approach for your students. So my daughter can still work all day long. She's off on Tuesdays. So Tuesday evening, she spends some times doing a few lessons in that certificate program. And eventually she'll have that certificate. So as she applies for a job, she'll have that. GED in adult education or high school. So sometimes our students leave school before they would earn a diploma. So a GED is an option for some students. Those are typically hosted by your local ROE or Regional Office of Education. Sometimes your community colleges also host them, and our students can get accommodations for taking the GED test. It is difficult with a capital D. Okay. So there's a form you have to fill out. It has to go to a board. You have to prove. It's much harder than their ACT or SAT accommodations. Like, it's really hard to do, but you can do it. So that's where a student really has to have strong advocacy skills to, ask for these accommodations. Apprenticeships, where they're going to learn right beside an employer and learn the skill from somebody else while they're doing it. A lot like on the job training, where they're working and learning as they go. Supportive employment, where they are working with a professional in an employment type setting and they're learning as they go there, but they do have that professional, whether they're to lean on for support. Entrepreneurships is a very underserved area for our students with disabilities. We don't focus enough on that. This means our students can develop their own business that they want to work at and learn about that. There are classes, of course, for entrepreneurships, like certificate programs or even college degrees. But I highly recommend, if you have a student that, like, for right now, I bet I've got 6 kids on my caseload that want to be a YouTube creator. That's what they want to do, right? It's really popular right now. But that's a form of entrepreneurship. So they definitely need to be taking advantage of, like, your CEO programs at your school district or broadcasting class. Make sure that we're really, it's not saying it's not a realistic goal. I know people that are YouTube creators that maybe make $10 a year with it, but I also see people that make a lot of money with it. So make sure that we're not telling a student that's a stupid dream to have or that dream's not attainable. If that's what they want, we're going to nourish that, but at the same time, they can be learning some other skills to apply in different areas just by the natural goal path to that. And then, of course, one of my favorites, the volunteer to work pathway. So a lot of individuals with disabilities, this is a great thing to do. I just sent my local transition teacher a volunteer opportunity for our community. They can learn different skills by volunteering. They can learn retail skills. They can learn healthcare skills, lots of things by volunteering in their community that can have and lead to a pathway to employment and a pathway to learning. So, don't make sure that you are definitely seeing what's out there in your community for your kiddos to do. Many local high schools require so many service hours of students. So this is a great way to say, this is important that you do this, and we should look at doing this and this and this. Yes, so I try not to look at the chat, but I seen this pop up and I wanted to mention this. So it is kind of a catching trend. I've toured about 4 different schools in my area here lately where they're offering different types of trades-driven classes in the form of electives while they're in high school. And a lot of schools are partnering with local community colleges or trade schools so that when your student leaves your high school, they have a certificate to do this, this, and this, kind of like dual credit for college. So this is wonderful. I've got one of my kiddos that graduated last year, is a full-time welder now from doing this with his local district. So definitely a lot of different schools offer that trade pathway, where they can learn while they're still in high school, still earning their high school diploma, but they can also learn those certificates, and it gives them a little bit more access to that trade. Maybe their path is always, I wanted to be a nurse, but after taking a health art class, they're like, this is not for me, right? So make sure that that is an option that you're really looking at when you talk to your kiddos about what kind of job they want to have, what kind of learning they want to have, that you're utilizing all resources right there within your own district or within your special education cooperative. All right. Think College is an excellent resource. You guys have probably heard me talk about it before, but it is an online, basically college database search website that you can get on. Think College has done presentation for Family Matters in the past, but it's a great way to learn about different inclusive post-secondary education programs in your state or in other states if that's what your student wants to do. So we're going to have the student's vision in mind. My student wants to go to college. Okay, what supports help him to be successful? Maybe having access to nursing services helps him to be successful. Maybe having access to not having to drive back and forth to class helps him to be successful. Think about all the things that helps our student be successful. Then you pull up Think College and see which inclusive college programs are around to offer different things. So this is a great way to kind of search that. And again, they have all sorts of states all over the United States that have inclusive programming. So if your student's dream is to go to New York to go to college, you could pull Think College up and see what college programs are available for them. This is also great to think about if your student's stating, I want to go to college, but I also want to live closer to home. And then you know what colleges are in your area that offer certain types of programmings. Like I stated before, all 2 and 4 year universities have to offer disability services if they take federal funding. So if they get FAFSA funding, there has to be a student service program that can help them get accommodations while they're there. But if your student needs more of an inclusive approach, definitely peek at Think College and see what's out there. Okay. I gotta say, there's some local universities to me that had excellent disability services. So you don't have to have just an inclusive college program to make it work. But if you feel like your student's going to benefit from this, look into this. Okay. And look to see what's around. All right. So, a college experience is designed to include students with intellectual disabilities. So, a lot of the times I hear from educators, my student's cognitive ability is not super high, or their reading level is super low. How are they going to go to college? Well, there's college programs for that. Such as IPSY. So these are classes with their peers without disabilities. They take different types of adulting courses. Typically, it's a certificate pathway, and they can also those certificates can lead to internships and employment. So they have access to campus clubs, recreational dining, and community life. So for Maya, IPSY could offer learning, campus belonging, internships, and adult life praxis. So make sure that we're checking all these out, guys. They're really, really great programs out there. I've toured 3 in the state that our state has to offer, and I was just so blown away and so like hopeful for the youth that I work with that they have opportunities. So like I said, you can think about these things when you're looking at Think College options. Let's envision our student in the middle, their strengths and how best to support them. Okay, what supports work for them best? And then we run this down, location and transportation. Can my student get there consistently? If they got to rely on public transportation, and sometimes public transportation is iffy, a college 4 hours away might not be a good idea, right? We need to focus on where he can have backup transportation. And then admission requirements. Is this can my student enter with a diploma or GED? Can they enter with this certificate? The cost and funding. Okay, so do these programs take tuition, VR funding, FAFSA, and then campus supports? What supports are already in place and already working for other students that my student can benefit from? And then employment connection is always important. So is there a pathway from learning straight to employment? Like, are there jobs coming there, like employers coming there wanting people to work? So think college, think about these things when you are thinking that college is the pathway that your student wants to take. So Intact actually offers a really good post-secondary education and training toolkit. So I encourage you guys as educators to make sure you're utilizing this resource. So it really helps you look at the types of post-secondary education and training that are out there and match them with your students. It also helps you understand the laws and support. So use it while you're planning, use it during, and use it after. So this transition toolkit is excellent. it's a great way to move from a good idea right straight into implementation. So every student that I work with to do a Charting the Life course plan, we have integrated the toolkit with them, and then they take that resource with them to the IEP table. Most of the time, then it's grabbed on by the transition coordinator, and that's it. And then they have it. It's a great resource to have. Oops, I hit the wrong button. All right, so midway knowledge point, we won't do all the questions, but if you guys could pop some answers in the chat, this is a requirement for your PD. Not that you get it right, but that I do it. So let's see. Could you guys name 3 post-secondary pathways for me besides a 4-year degree in a college? So name 3 different type of post-secondary pathways for me. Volunteer, trade school, very good. Internship, apprenticeships, perfect. You guys are listening. I knew you would be. You're doing great. All right, last question. Why should graduation status be discussed early? So why should we be discussing about graduation status at that 14 and a half transition planning meeting? Why is it important to talk about graduation status? To plan for what path the student takes during high school. Thank you, Mrs. Carswell. Have time to discuss more options. Yes, diploma versus certificate. Very good, you guys. This is great. Great job. All right, I want to talk a little bit about IDD Navigator. In your post email that I send you will be a link to a podcast that explains more about the IDD Navigator, but it is an amazing tool that our state has at its fingertips. Okay, so IDD is an abbreviation we use for individuals with developmental disabilities. So it's a select group of students that you may be serving. They're going to have a higher support need disability that's going to qualify them for some type of home-based service waiver funding, Medicaid waiver funding in the future. So those services and pathways are so very hard to navigate. I'm sure you all know from setting in IEP meetings, you're now required by the state of Illinois to share more information about the PUNS list, right? So that's hard to do. It's hard to do when you don't work for your local service coordination, or it's hard to do when you don't speak about PUNS all day long, right? So this IDD Navigator is a great resource to share with your families and use as you are making transition planning as a way to connect them with next service steps, okay? So there's things about residential placement and where the student can live, employment support, schools that offer different inclusive education, and you can use it again, sharing it as a starting point, not a guaranteeing of services, just saying, reminding parents you have to become eligible for things. So this IDD Navigator can help you determine if you're eligible, and it's a great resource. It helps a student connect with DRS, or the Department of Rehabilitation Services, their Center for Independent Living, and their local service coordination that will serve them as an adult. So IDD Navigator can really be a great resource to have, and I encourage you to find out more about it. At least listen to the podcast I'll be sending out. And it wasn't my podcast, so it's a good podcast. All right, so GED and adult education pathways. Some students don't graduate with a high school diploma. They may seek a GED after exiting school. That does not mean that they are bad people. I think there's a lot of stigma around a GED. I mean, of course, the best thing for our student would be to stay in school where supports are there, but sometimes that doesn't work out for students. So GED and adult education pathways are things that you can really think about. There's supports and services that are out there. Again, it's hard to get your IEP accommodations applied to that official GED test, but it is doable. I don't want to tell you that it's not doable. As far as the classes, I have GED instructors call me all the time saying, hey, I have a student with a specific learning disability. What accommodations could I give him in class? Like, that's not a problem. It's the official test itself. And can anybody be brave or not brave? Can anybody tell me, have you ever taken the GED test? Like, could you put it in the chat? Anybody ever done that? I have, and I took the pretest and I failed miserably. Okay, and I have a bachelor's degree in college, so that GED test is very hard to pass. Yes, Melissa did. Okay, it was a requirement of my job to take the pretest to help me help students understand what path is best for them. So if you do have a student that says, I am going to drop out of school as soon as I turn 17, as soon as my mom will sign that paper, but I'm going to get my GED, this is a great way for you to show them, okay, that's an okay pathway to take. There's nothing bad. You're not a bad kid to do that, but this is what that test is going to look like. Okay, these are where you're going to have to go take your classes, and there'll be no transportation back and forth like the school bus has now. This is what's available to you. You're not discouraging them from that pathway, but you're definitely giving them a realistic approach to it. Okay, because the GED test, you guys, is hard. I failed my practice test miserably, mostly the math portion, I'll be honest with you, but it's hard. So it's important that we show our students that. Okay. And that you can find online. There's lots of different versions of the, pretest for GED. Same way with lots of different types of employment pathways, by the way, you guys. So if you got a kiddo that really wants to be a paramedic or an EMT, I'm using this because my son just got his certificate not long ago. There's a pre-test you can take for that, a practice test. So a lot of jobs have practice tests out there related to that. So don't be afraid to Google those things. If you got a kiddo that's on this path and this is what they want to do, definitely show them this is what will be required of. This is the knowledge you'll have to do, and you'll have to pass this test. Again, you're not discouraging it. You're just giving them a realistic approach. Trade school and career I talked a lot about earlier. They're wonderful. If you as an educator haven't had a chance to go tour a trade school, definitely do it. Okay, find out what your closest trade school is and go take a peek. It's a different learning style. And setting in a classroom at a desk is one type of way to learn. Trade school is a different type. As you can see right here, Maya is chopping vegetables instead of learning from a science book about how to chop vegetables or how to like she's learning with an instructor right there at trade school. And like I stated before, many trade schools a clear path to employment. Like you've got employers knocking down the door at the trade school. So some popular trade school options, not the only ones, would be culinary or hospitality, welding and manufacturing, automotive or diesel technology, healthcare support roles, construction trades, agriculture and animal care, and information and technology. So again, as you guys can see here, these particular trades are high income trades. Like they are like welders make good money, culinary artists make good money, right? So this is not a bad path. And again, this isn't a better way to learn than going to college. It's maybe a better way to learn for your students. So don't be afraid to sell a trade school. Okay. Go tour one. And if you've got a kiddo that really wants to be a chef, take them to see one, right? So trade schools can be really good options. I will say they're in smaller rural areas like where I live, they're a little harder to come by. Like I said, my brother went to Cleveland for trade school. But look out there, see what's available. Certificate programs I talked about a little bit earlier before. My daughter's currently taking one for to be a caterer. So she found a certificate program and through our local community college, but they're literally lots of certificate programs all over everywhere. And it's a do at her own pace for this particular certificate program. And so she does really well with it. I can read the questions to her out loud. She can read the material, watch the videos. She's been super successful. Now that's not a degree, but she'll have a certificate that may help her to get a promotion at her current job or might help her to one day start her own catering company. A lot of certificate programs intertwine state licensures about things. So for her, she already had her serve safe, but she had to take that again for the certificate program. Now she's working on her food manager's license. So it's an option, okay, and it's expensive. It can be a little expensive. The certificate programs can, but there are connections where you can get certain things paid for if you're found eligible for it. So for example, if your student's working with WIOA, sometimes WIOA will pay for a certificate program or the Department of Rehabilitation Services. Apprenticeships, that's more of on paid on the job training, where you're working right alongside someone to learn how to do a trade without going to school or getting a certificate. I explained this to someone the other day. A lot of the times, once you're employed by this person, you have professional development you have to do every year, right? And then you'll get a certificate while you're working there that you could carry on with you. But apprenticeships are a great way. And as for a transition team, it's great to connect with the Illinois WorkNet programs or your local job centers, practice workplace readiness skills, and definitely coordinate with your local DRS office. Community-based learning. I feel like this is very, very much underrated. We don't take a lot of advantage of this. This is something you could start implementing into a student's transition plan now. Okay, so while they're in school, kind of take a peek. As a transition coordinator and an educator, you know that you have to be in depth with what your community has to offer. So pay attention if your local library is offering a tax preparation class. Okay. If your local senior citizen building is doing cooking classes. Okay. So again, not all learning is necessarily a pathway toward employment. Sometimes learning is just a pathway to being more independent. So I did a local tax preparation class in my community. I don't do my own taxes, but I at least understand it a little bit better, right? Same way with health and nutrition classes. So local places that offer those could be a library, an extension office, park district, YMCA's, library. I said library, but anyway, the key thing when students learn how to access community classes now, they're more likely to use them as opportunities and as an adult. So let's say they knew about that YMCA offered cooking classes and they took them there when they were in high school. Later on, now they're becoming a parent and they know now that I wonder if YMCA offers parenting classes. So it's a great thing to incorporate into the transition planning now, even if it's just investigate what community learning my community has to offer. Maybe even ask your students if they want to go and do yoga at the local YMCA or something, just to be familiar with local community services. On the job training, again, you're working right alongside a professional in your career making money for it. It's a great way. So with Maya, she's in culinary school, but she's also working 2 hours weekly at a bakery shop. She's job shadowing in that, and then building towards paid work for Maya. I said this early, disability service and post-secondary settings are there. Okay. So I generally, I always ask, have you toured a college you've wanted to go to? And if they say yes, then I say, okay, where's their disability service program? Sometimes they're not on college tours. But if your student's on the pathway to trade school or college, more of a formal setting for learning, make sure that they know who the disability service office is, who works there, how to connect them, where they're at on campus. Incorporate that into a transition goal. Okay. Make sure that mom and dad know that the student needs to access this. The tricky part about this is it cannot be mom and dad and it cannot be transition teacher going and saying my student needs services. Your student has to do this for themselves. So we're going to really focus on those self-advocacy skills, on understanding their disability and understanding the accommodations they need to be successful. That's why it's important. We talked about this last time, that your accommodations that are listed in your student's IEP be in student-friendly language. Okay. If you're calling what they're getting a note that their friend is helping them take notes a scribe, make sure they know what a scribe is. Okay. Make sure they know what professional seating is. Okay. Like, make sure it's in student friendly language so they know how to advocate for that when they get to next steps. The family role. So a family's role, of course, is to discuss with their student what their path is going to be. Okay. So talk about what life's going to look like after school. Visit programs and ask questions. Prepare by collecting records and practicing routines. Plan on that transportation. Coach our students and connect with your transition coordinators and your educators at your school to make sure both your plans align the same. So you're working on the same thing at school that they're working with at home. And remember, as a family, you're not letting go, you're helping them practice. So it's hard when your kids go to college. It's really hard, but again, we're there to help them to succeed. The student, it's important that they know their strengths, their learning preferences, again, what their accommodations are, their vision for a whole good life and what the next steps need to be. So with Maya, she used her one pager during visits to her local culinary schools to learn about what would help her learn best to determine what's the best thing she needs. Funding considerations. All types of learning takes money, right? So if we're going to that traditional college setting or trade school, make sure we know that it's going to cost money and there's going to be fees and books around. Make sure that we're paying attention to scholarships, all right? Don't be afraid, transition teachers and educators, to reach out to your counselor at school and say, hey, what scholarships could be available for my student to do this? That's their job to look into that. Different types of funding sources for our students. Again, they have to become eligible for it. So they have to apply financial aid, DRS, workforce programs, waiver supports like WIOA. So again, they have to become eligible. Eligibility and availability vary from student to student. So make sure we're asking early on if our student's plan is to go to trade school, but they've not figured out how they're going to pay for that yet. It's an empty goal to have. So we have to think about the way they're going to pay for that. We have to make sure that that's reality for our students as well. So build the team around the pathway. So make sure that the pathway that the student wants, that we're building the team around that and just not saying there's not enough services available for that. So make sure the family knows about the pathway, make sure the school team, the VR counselor, the adult college team, it's absolutely okay to invite someone from the disability services at the college to the last exit IEP meeting. It's a great idea. Same way with your DRS counselor and employer. Those are great things because that's going to set our student up for success. Maya's pathway. Let's revisit Maya here real quick. So Maya did some campus visits. She met with disability services. She explored the admission process and practiced her kitchen routines. She chose an inclusive college program by using Think College. She compared the programs. She did some more campus tours, and her family had input on the decision. She now has a job at a bakery. Okay, she went to that inclusive college program, got a trades degree in culinary. She did some job shadowing. She did some travel training and work readiness, and practice her self-advocacy skills. So Maya's pathway was fulfilled with what she wanted. It may not look exactly like Maya thought it was going to look, but that is life's lesson, right? I, as you guys can tell right now, am in Hollywood making special effects monsters for the movie agency, right? I just finished my last Rob Zombie movie because that's how I wanted my success to look. So it's going to be changing. It's going to move. Okay. That's part of becoming an adult. You twist and you move and you find different pathways to happiness. But for Maya, she knew I want to do some type of college program and I really like cooking, right? I really like to do things with my hands. So we made sure we followed that pathway, and Maya is happy with where she is right now, and she always has room to grow. So if Maya wanted to go on to a community college and get a 4-year degree, or a 2-year degree in culinary arts, she could do that. Okay, that door is still open for her. The team did not pick for Maya. The team created experience so Maya can make a more informed choice about herself. We gave Maya the dignity of risk. Some final reflections. So, really think about a pathway you want to explore and be able to present that pathway to a student that you have in mind. Make sure you're connecting with services that will serve that student along that pathway. Try to really think about removing barriers instead of just saying that barrier's there so it can't happen. So, there's ways to remove barriers, and schedule a visit with your local college, schedule a visit with the trade school, look into your community learning opportunities, look into volunteering in your community. So try to take the information you obtain today and apply it more for your post-secondary education goals for your students by trying some of these things out. Take the practice test for the GED. Totally different mindset after that. So some key takeaways. There's many valid paths and lots of ways to get there, like college, IPSEs, trade school certificates. Make sure that that graduation status is being declared to the family really early on. And I know that even though sometimes you say it, families struggle to understand the concept. Make sure that we're restating this several times. Your student isn't on a pathway for a diploma, or they are on a pathway for a diploma. And because they're on a pathway for a diploma, this is what the expectations are. Because they're on a pathway certificate, this is what the expectations are. Definitely connect with these resources, guys. They'll all be emailed to you afterwards, and preparation starts now. So I know the whole time I've been teaching, I'm just such a great teacher. I know you guys have been totally engaged, right? You've been thinking about a student in mind, okay, while I say all these things. Make sure that you're following up with that. You're giving that time that's needed. Here are some resources. These will be linked and hyperlinked in your email after. I really encourage you, as always, to focus on that charting the life course framework and taking a peek at that. The IDD Navigator, the toolkit from Intact, of course, Think College, and all the resources that ISB has to offer. These are some different Illinois specific partners that are out there, and some more planning reminders. So ask program specific questions, verify admissions, practice self-advocacy skills before the exit, maybe help them to make that one pager one last time, connect with the families early, and keep the student's vision at the center, not the services available to them. All right, before I end the recording today, I want to thank you for visiting us and taking part of this training with us today. Please, if you could, take our survey. Let us know how we're doing. Can we improve? What you want to focus on next, because your input matters. All right, I'm going to stop the recording and then I will take some questions.